Dr. Jim Henderson is the president of the University System of Louisiana. Hey, Dr. Jim, welcome back to KEEL. How are you today?
I'm doing great. Good morning. How are you?
You know, we had the story, I guess it was early on last week, maybe the week before, I don't recall, about the changing the entrance requirements for LSU. And we wanted somebody, to explain that to us. But let's start with this, is because there's going to be less emphasis on testing and grades. You explain to me how you perceive these changes.
Well, of course, I'm not a spokesman for LSU. I want to make that clear at the beginning. But it seems that LSU is putting a larger emphasis on what we call holistic admission standards. And holistic is a word that has been around admission standards probably for the last 10 to 15 years. In fact, 10 years ago, I was on a panel with a faculty member from LSU who was talking about their holistic approach. So I'm not sure that this is really a new process, and it might be more of a focus an amplification of that process.
Are there any other universities, any other university systems around the country that are doing this, and has it worked out to the better?
Depends on how you look at it. So if you look at, there's a number of Ivy League schools and highly selective universities that have been the forefront of holistic admissions. But remember, these are universities that are deciding between a candidate pool, tens of thousands of candidates that have a 32-plus ACT. And they're using holistic admissions to distinguish amongst these academically gifted applicants. Other universities that aren't as highly selective will use holistic admissions sometimes to advance diversity, a diversity agenda to diversify their campus, and there's a lot of value to that. And so there's a number of ways you can apply holistic admissions. It can work, but I caution we cannot use universities in an effort to boost enrollment or boost some of these other needs and bring students into an environment where they can't be successful. So if you're going to enroll students that have not had the academic rigor of the core curriculum that Louisiana has been on the forefront in the K through 12 system and advancing, and if they don't have the test scores and the academic preparation, they're not going to be successful at the university level unless you have some comprehensive support structures around them, and that can be very difficult and very costly to do.
The headline says the LSU board okays new admission standards that lean harder on essays and recommendations rather than test scores. That sounds like it's really subjective. Who's telling me my essay is better than Robert's or vice versa? And there's going to be a lot of wiggle room here, right?
Well, if you look at our admission standards now, they're divided into tiers. So we have the flagship university at LSU. We have the statewide universities, which would be UNO, Louisiana Tech, and UL Lafayette, and then the regional university. And the admissions criteria established by the Board of Regents for each of them is a little bit different. But here's the key, and this is what people sometimes misunderstand. There is an ACT score requirement, or there's a high school GPA in the core curriculum. So maybe you're a student that doesn't do as well on the ACT test, standardized test. Maybe you're from a rural area and you don't have access to some of the ACT preparation that others do. You can still achieve admission to our most prestigious universities by performing well in the core curriculum in high school, the math, the science, the social studies, the English. And when you perform well with that GPA, and between those are two great predictors of success. Either individually typically is not, at least especially in the ACT score. You could have a low ACT score and still excel in college. However, that GPA, which is determined over a 4-year period, it really gets to the academic aptitude of the student. I think that's a worthy standard. And an essay is great, and recommendation letters are great, but that should be able to enhance that academic record and not substitute for it.
Dr. Jim, you mentioned at the beginning of our conversation that obviously LSU is not under your aegis, under your authority, but a lot of universities, a lot of colleges across the state are. How do you anticipate that these changing standards, entrance standards, at LSU will affect the colleges that that you work with?
You know, there's a lot of misconceptions about that. Someone asked me, "Are you worried that LSU is going to go after the students that attend your university?" And listen, we've got 135 valedictorians that attend UL Lafayette. Louisiana Tech, who was the first public institution, one of the first public institutions in Louisiana to implement selective admissions criteria before it was ever required. That was done under the presidency of Dan Renault, and Dan knew that if you were going to be a successful student at Louisiana Tech, you had to be academically prepared before you got to Louisiana Tech. And now Louisiana Tech just had their largest freshman class in history. It's also the most academically gifted in its history. You go to Northwestern State, where they have the Louisiana Scholars College, which is the preeminent honors college, the state-designated honors college in Louisiana. They've got their highest enrollment in their history. Grambling State, with the Renaissance under the leadership of Rick Gallo, introduction of cyber programs and some of the things that they're doing there academically, they've had their fourth consecutive year of growth. And so, you know, I'm not worried about what it does for our institutions. We're focused on getting students in that are prepared to succeed and then preparing them for success after graduation.
How many more students can LSU take? I mean, critics are saying this is just to put more tuition-paying students in LSU's classrooms. Are they anticipating this will grow their enrollment by big numbers? I mean, because it's lower standards.
Well, I will tell you this, that all of us want to serve more students simply because we have to have a more educated populace. We have to have a more educated workforce. College-educated citizens contribute a lot to the richness of life in communities. You know, LSU has a strategic plan that they're pursuing that I hope focuses on research, it focuses on graduate studies, it focuses on some of the things that make LSU truly a great institution. Our institutions are focused on preparing the most educated generation in Louisiana's history. Our institutions are focused on pursuing research that has immediate application in the regional economies we serve, and growing arts programs that contribute to the quality of life in our communities, and finally giving our employers a competitive advantage because of the talent we develop. So we intend to grow. We intend to produce 150,000 new graduates by 2025, and we continue to be a central part of the communities that we serve.